All right, what's up, guys? We're back for the last and final week of Contender Series for 2020-24. Last week, we did really well. We actually went 5-0. We won pretty good money. We won money on the UFC also. Won money on Tough Enough. So 3-0 on events last week in terms of betting on patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. Go over there, check it out. There's a ton of events this week going on. Obviously, we got the UFC and Francis Ngannou's fight, on top of some other more regional promotions. But you guys are here for the Contender Series this time, and just hit that like button, man, and tell me what you think about the picks. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I feel like last week was a really good week for the Contender Series. This week it's all right, but not as high quality. But still, we got the first fight of the night here between the Canadian Muhammad Adu and the Australian Jonathan Mikaloff. And Muhammad Adu is unbeaten. He's out of Canada. He's had all 5 of his fights with Unified MMA, which is a promotion on Fight Pass in Canada. This is his first fight in the United States, and he's gotten all of his wins via finish, 4 submissions, 1 knockout. Pretty much fought low-level competition, but he looks athletic and strong. And Jonathan Mikaloff, he's Australian, 6-1 pro record. All 6 of his fights have been in Australia. He's another one of these fighters from the Hex Fight Series. He actually is the Hex champion, or he was the Hex champion. He beat Joseph Luciano, who is in Bellator, recently got a win in Bellator. And he did end up losing the belt, but he bounced back with the win in September. This is going to be his second fight in about 6 weeks, so hopefully he's ready to go and he's able to do these 2 weight cuts easily and compete at the best level that he can. But he's a good fighter. Jonathan Mikaloff, I would say, he likes to be all the way in or all the way out style-wise. And Mikaloff on the feet, he has good speed. He has good counters. Mikaloff will pressure. He'll try to use switch stance, lead hooks, and kind of duck under for takedowns under those strikes. He'll throw some decent kicks as well. Kind of tries to decide which side he thinks you're going to exit on and throw kicks to that side of the body or the head. And good counter hooks as fighters try to close the distance. He checks kicks fairly effectively. But if you can get in a boxing range against him or brawling range, he only really looks for the check hook or to grab you. And that's where he can take damage. He isn't the most composed. In his one loss, he did get knocked out versus a power puncher. And his wrestling is much more effective when he can go forward. And his wrestling is his bread and butter. So opponents, they do have to pressure Mikaloff to be successful. But if Mikaloff can get on top, he has good control, got a couple of submission victories under his ledger, and he looks difficult to hold down as well. He has good conditioning. He's gone 5 rounds. He does slow down, but you have to put some damage on him. Like in his loss, he got tired, but if he has a fight where he can control the pace with his wrestling and get those takedowns, he's not going to get tired over 3 rounds. But Muhammad Adu, one of the best prospects for Canada right now. He's athletic. He's good everywhere. On the feet, he has solid speed, nice straight punches, good leg kicks. He's effective with his pressure, and he's a composed striker. I feel like he's superior on the feet. He doesn't have the best defense, but I think he's faster, a little bit more active and dangerous. He has to be careful about that check hook, but I think he's more composed, kind of the better striker, especially if he could pressure. And he has used his wrestling and submission game to win the majority of his fights. He has 4 submissions, and he's strong. You could tell that he's good with body lock takedowns. It's a little bit more strength than technicality and skill at this point. I feel like with Mikaloff, he probably doesn't want to be trying to take him down and be in the clinch with him. But Adu does have nice back takes. He has good back control. His most recent fight, he did get taken down a few times with some judo throws, but showed good ability to stay up. Even when he got put in some bad positions, he was able to stand up, and he eventually got a guillotine in that fight, so showed that if you try to take him down, he is going to be dangerous with offense. And his opponent made some mistakes to get out of position, so I think that Adu definitely has to be sharper with his wrestling, grappling in this matchup and going forward in the UFC. But his composure, his cardio are really good, and I think this fight is close. I think Mikolov is the better grappler. He has subpar stand-up, but fast, athletic, and definitely could land that check hook and rock Adu. But Adu, I believe, should try to keep the distance more and use stand-up in this fight. He normally doesn't do that. If he engages in the clinch, I think Mikolov could potentially grind it out. But on the feet, Mikolov's going to be throwing those lead hooks, trying to clinch. And I think he becomes predictable. If Adu could stuff some takedowns, he could get Mikolov tired and take over if he puts damage on him as well. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Mikolov's going to shoot a lot, gas himself out, because Adu will be slick, composed, moving forward. I think he may get taken down, but be able to get back up, end up stuffing some shots eventually. And I'm going to say he wins a decision in this one. So Muhammad Adu is my prediction in this fight. But I do think it's a good fight where both guys, honestly, you could argue are UFC level already. But continuing through the card, we got Leslie Hernandez. She's going to be taking on Julieta Martinez in a fun fight at 115 pounds. Martinez, I believe, is the youngest fighter to compete on the Contender Series this season. She's only 20 years old. She's 7-0 as a pro, and she has been fighting in the Samurai Fight House promotion, mostly against bums, but she did win their strawweight title. She won a tournament for them as well, which was another belt. It was kind of difficult to find fights of Martinez, but in the couple of fights I did see, she looked pretty dominant. She's a Taekwondo fighter, but she's finished most of her fights on the ground. In one fight I watched, she had a head kick caught, which was pretty much the first strike thrown of the fight. But she showed good balance. She immediately was able to turn it around, get the body lock herself, and landed directly into mount and kind of finished her opponent with elbows pretty quickly. In one of her amateur losses, she was doing well, and she showed up for striking a lot more in that fight. She was blitzing in with really nice kicks with both legs, switch stance, punches, and she was very fast, aggressive. You could see that Taekwondo style coming out. And she was pretty much dominating that entire fight. Third round, she dropped her opponent, kind of went in a little bit too aggressively, and got armbarred and ended up losing. So, was a learning lesson, but not necessarily a bad performance. The most recent fight I could find of hers was her fight at Samurai Fight House 14, which was December of 2023. And that fight was a title fight, but Martinez showed no anxiety. The short period of time she was in space, she showed off the footwork. She ended up getting the takedown, and she did make a mistake. She kind of she didn't get the takedown that cleanly. She pulled her opponent kind of on top of her and used a leg attack to sweep and get on top. And on top, Martinez is a beast. You could tell she has heavy top pressure. She's good with their awareness on top. She did get armbarred in her one loss, and you could see that she didn't really follow the hips that well and got put in an armbar in her last fight as well. So she needs to clean that up a little bit. But when she could posture and throw elbows, she's nasty. She wears her opponents down and then ends up taking them out a lot in the later rounds or even early. But just her ground and pound is really good, and her cardio looked good at heading into round 2 of her last fight, but her opponent was gassed out after 5 minutes. So obviously it wasn't that high-level opposition. This is a step up in competition for her, clearly, and she's taken on an MMA lab fighter in Leslie Hernandez, who's been fighting better competition in the LFA, and she did lose her debut via split decision, but she's won 4 fights since then. Got a decision win 3 months ago, and this is going to be her 3rd fight in 2024, so she's been active. And Hernandez, she's powerful. She has 4 wins as a pro, 2 are first-round knockouts. Her record in decisions is a little more mixed. She's 2-1, but 2 of the 3 fights that have gotten a decision for her are splits, and she has solid hands. Her jab is stinging. She'll throw some fast, straight punches. She'll mix in some body-head combinations. Her check hook counter isn't bad. Counter overhands are decent. And she has good pressure, but she does tend to sit back and counter. Her last fight was pretty fun to watch, though. She fought a very good striker. Both girls did work on the feet, did a lot of damage, but Hernandez was the one that was able to eventually mix it up, start getting the takedowns, got on top, and differentiated herself and got the win that way. And she kind of got a little lucky in the third round because her opponent slipped on a kick and she was able to get on top that way and controlled until the round ended. And she was looking a little tired, but round two, you did see Hernandez time a good double. And when Hernandez gets on top, she's good at just holding you down, doing enough to not get stood up and kind of winning the fight that way. I feel like she isn't as powerful or heavy on top as Martinez, but neither girl really has much of a submission threat. Martinez's submissions are more through her making her opponents quit with ground and pound, and Hernandez has no submissions. So this is great matchmaking here. I think Martinez looks really good, strong, well-rounded, fast, and it's going to come down to how good she is at using her kicks and moving in and out, avoiding those counters. I think she's going to throw the volume. She's going to be stronger in the clinch. But the problem is she just hasn't faced anyone that's very good. And if she eats some heavy punches or gets put on her back, you don't really know how she's going to handle that adversity. But I think that Hernandez is no pushover. Obviously, coming out of the MMA lab, she has power punches. She has decent grappling. I just think that Martinez looks like someone that could become a really good fighter, and so I'm going to ride with her as the fighter that I think has more upside and predict her to get this win via decision. I think it's going to be hard fought. I think it's going to be really fun to watch, and I'm going to go with Julieta Martinez. But next fight, another fight that I think is going to be very entertaining, Yadier Delali versus Antonio Montero. And Yadier Delali, he's a Cuban fighter that moved and is training out of the United States in Texas. He trains with Crew Bob and the other high-level coaches at Main Street Boxing and Muay Thai. And the majority of his fights have been with Fury FC, and they've also been against good opponents. He is taking on a big test here, though. He's taking on a 22-fight veteran in only his 8th fight. And Antonio Montero, 29 years old, he's coming out of Novo União, 2-promotion champion in Brazil, and they're pretty significant promotions with the Centurion FC and Shooto Brazil titles under his belt. And he's on a 6-fight winning streak. He hasn't lost since 2019. Activity has been an issue for him. This is his first fight of 2024. And in the last 5 years, he's only fought 7 times. He had a ton of fights between 2013, 2017, and that's where most of his losses are and most of his fights are in general. But he's still in his prime, and it seems like he's been adding skills, and he looks good, man. I mean, the guy's has solid boxing. He will throw nice jabs, 1-2s. He'll look to counter with blitzes, big uppercuts. He has good hand speed, and he has great timing on the level changes, nice takedowns. His last fight, he was fighting a guillotine hunter who was kind of giving up the takedowns, trying to get a guillotine and failing. But his wrestling looked pretty good, though. I mean, the timing looked good. Good pressure, nasty elbows. And he's methodical with his positioning. He'll kind of slow cook fighters until they give bad positions. He has 5 submission wins. His stand-up is what needs work. He does have the solid boxing and hand speed, but a little robotic. Doesn't move his head much. And you have to respect his ability to land that check hook or close the gap quickly. But he's heavy on his lead leg. You can kind of touch him up a little bit with counter punches. But he's going to bring that pressure. And he has that high and tight guard. He's durable. So he's a solid fighter. And his cardio is decent. He's had fights where I've seen him slow down. But he's also had fights where he's went 5 rounds. And I think if he can get on top and establish himself against most guys, he's going to be a problem. And his boxing is good too. But Yadier Delali, he has some really slick back takes. He has that body triangle and just kind of sticks to you like glue. Nasty ground and pound when he lets it go. And he spent time on the back in a lot of his fights where he just kind of backpacks fighters. And even on bottom, though, which he could spend time on bottom in this fight, he's also a guy that attacks guillotines just like Montero's last opponent. And I do believe that Delali is a little more dangerous with the guillotine. The defense that Montero was showing was really good, but if Delali gets a guillotine, I wouldn't be shocked. But Delali, even if you can put him on his back, he will throw nice up kicks, good elbows, and you have to be a little bit weary of him there. And on the feet, he has kind of a more karate taekwondo striking base. He's light on his feet. He has that long bladed stance. He kind of floats his chin and is a little sloppy, but he moves laterally well and fast and then darts in with 2-3s, 3-2s. He has some decent pull counters. He'll throw hard kicks. And I think in this fight, he needs to throw a lot of leg kicks, head kicks. Try to land those counters as Montero comes in, maybe time some takedowns. He's the more skilled fighter, Yadier Delali. I think he's going to be able to use his footwork, land some big counters. I hope he throws leg kicks. But his opponent is going to be walking him down, keeping the pressure. And I think the body attacks, body punches from Montero are going to be effective. Yadier is going to be throwing heat and looking to damage with the strike he lands. But I don't think he's going to be able to compete volume-wise. I don't think he's going to be able to compete in terms of boxing. I think both fighters are good grapplers and wrestlers. That might kind of nullify and make it more of a striking fight. I think that Montero, if there is one person that can establish top position and get on top, it will probably be Montero, but he has to be very aware of that guillotine. I think that guillotine is a potential problem for him, but I think Montero has the edge if it can stay standing over 3 rounds, and I think he's slightly the better wrestler. And if he can be comfortable on top, I think he'll clearly win. If it's a stand-up fight, I think it will be very close. But cardio for both guys is a little questionable. I think it's advantage Montero, though. He has been 5 rounds. He has that higher level of experience in terms of a lot more fights as well. And I think if Montero can eat those punches early, keep the pressure, he can take over a little bit as the fight goes on. I think he can hurt Yadier, maybe even get a knockdown or two. And I'm going to predict he gets the decision win and as the slight underdog in that fight. And up next year, we got a fight between Nick Picinini and Luis Gelli. And Nick Picinini is back to officially secure a spot in the UFC. He originally was going to rematch Jack Duffy, and Duffy wasn't able to make the turnaround from their fight August 24th. It was him and Duffy that had that controversial split decision that Dana White and a lot of people believe that Jack Duffy deserved the nod on. So he was bringing them both back to kind of settle that and more than likely give the winner a contract. But Duffy fell off, and now Piccinini's fighting Luis Gelli, which is a very good replacement. Gorelli's a Factory X fighter, the current Fury FC champion, so both fighters have to be familiar with each other. This fight could have easily been the next Fury FC 125-pound title fight, and now these boys get to do the same job for 2 less rounds, more money, and an opportunity to get into the UFC guaranteed. So I think they like this spot that they're both in. And Gelli, he's 9-0 and been dominant, fun to watch. So both these guys are undefeated. And, I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're both going to come with. Nick Piccinini, his striking is serviceable. He'll bring those big overhands, the big punches. He's athletic, but we saw his last fight. I mean, he wasn't comfortable striking even against a more grappling-centric kicker that didn't have very much boxing or hands, and he was even stinging Piccinini with straight punches. And I feel like they gave Piccinini 2 really hard matchups in 2 different ways. Originally, they gave him, when he fought Duffy, someone that was going to test him more in terms of scrambles on the ground, someone that was trying to take Piccinini down, which he probably had never seen before with his wrestling pedigree. No one even attempted it. And a kicker that kind of was a little bit weird on the feet. And now he's fighting a super strong, good anti-grappler with pressure striking. So Picinini, I think, has to wrestle here. I don't think he can compete on the feet. Gelli is a very heavy hitter with both his hands and his kicks, and he never moves backwards. He throws big leg kicks, which I think are going to be a factor in him winning if he does get this victory. And he's just extremely active with his hands, throwing different type of kicks to all parts of the body, and he has that thudding power. He doesn't necessarily one-punch KO guys, but he'll cut them open. You could tell that they're really hurt and struggling by the end of the fight. And the guy's just a marauder. He keeps coming forward. The thing is, I have seen him give his back. His takedown defense is solid, and he's very strong, so it makes him hard to hold down really overall. But he's never fought someone like Nick Picinini, someone that has the level of wrestling that he does. And if Picinini can take him down or even get stuffed and turn the corner and make it a wrestling ride, kind of stall out fight, maybe get the back, throw the hooks in, he could win that way. I don't know if he's going to want to win that way, though, and that's what's a little more intriguing about this fight, and I think what we kind of have to see, because if Picinini is a little in his head regarding how he thinks he has to win this fight due to what went down the last time and him not getting a contract, maybe he'll throw a little more caution to the wind and try to have more moments to create some opportunities for himself on the ground and lose position and give Gelli more opportunities to knock him out. And I think that the more that they're standing, Gelli's going to do the damage. I feel like even if Picinini's controlling on the mat, I don't know how effective he's going to be in terms of really hurting his opponent or doing anything crazy. So it's like, is the control going to offset the damage the same way he did in his last fight after Dana White just gave a load of crap to the judges for the Picinini-Duffy fight? It could go differently. So I'm kind of leaning towards Gelli here. Either a late finish for him or a decision that's very close. But I'm going to go with Gelli. I know that some people are bringing up the angle of, the 2 weight cuts in short succession, which I do think affect Picinini more. He's a bigger guy. But Gelli actually just fought less than a month ago, 4 rounds. So he's making a quick turnaround as well. So both guys have that issue, but I'm going with Gelli in this fight. Tell me what you guys think about this one, though, because I think this is a intriguing matchup here. And finally, we got a stinker to me in the main event. Nick Klein, Heraldo, Souza, 2 unimpressive fighters to me. Heraldo Souza, he had an original opponent who I think was the guy that the UFC was targeting, and he fell out, and then he was replaced with Wes Schultz, who fought earlier on the season in a losing effort, and then Wes Schultz had to pull out, and now they gave him Wes Schultz's teammate, Nick Klein. So you could see, obviously, they needed to get a lot of replacements for this one, and might not be the highest level of opponent for Souza. And Souza's 9-1-1 and SFT champion in Brazil, unbeaten his last 6 fights, but hasn't been impressive opposition, and I wasn't very enthralled with him. And Nick Klein, 5-1, 1 win in LFA, but all his other wins are in really weak promotions. As far as the matchup goes, Nick Klein has more weapons. He can move all right. He's taller, longer. He'll try to use kicks, the jab, timing with the strikes. He can work takedowns, but his wrestling doesn't look that good. When he can get on top, he is effective, but I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that. And he's just very slow. He's not a good athlete. His cardio doesn't look the greatest either. Heraldo Souza is a more explosive athlete. He's a boxer. He throws all right hand combos. He uses feints. He'll attack the body to open his power punches up to the head. And he's gotten some knockouts lately. When he can go forward, he's solid. And he doesn't check kicks, though. And he isn't that good fighting off the back foot. I haven't seen him really have to deal with too much takedowns. But I just feel like he's going to be too athletic for Klein, most likely. I feel like he's going to be able to find the knockout. Low-level fight. If Souza gasses and ends up being taken down and finished in a slot fest, I wouldn't be shocked at all. But I'm going to predict a second round finish for Heraldo Souza in the main event. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Hit the like button, like I said at the start of the video. Put a comment down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my predictions? A lot of really close lines on this fight card. But as far as the play of the week this week, I'll give you guys a play of Julieta Martinez. I'll say to play her at minus 130. I feel like she should be lined like minus 175. So give me Martinez as the play of the week for you guys. And thanks for watching.